Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the SAS Viya Release Highlight Show. Today, we're covering the latest SAS Viya releases, including enhancements to how data is presented in SAS Information Catalog and the new model registration node in SAS Model Studio. We also have an exciting, focused rundown today where you will learn about the latest SAS Viya Copilot launches. Lastly, we'll get to sit down with the one and only David Vike to take a closer look at the SAS Viya MCP server and the SAS Agentic AI Accelerator. These are two additions that open new possibilities for how people can interact with SAS and build more intelligent workflows. But first, we'll start off, as usual, with David, who will take us into the SAS Viyaverse.
Hello and welcome back. This time we have new updates to the main menu. We have more insights for your data and a lot more to dig into. So let's get right into it. We are starting things off inside of SAS Information Catalog, where the way that data is communicated back to us when we're looking at table has been greatly enhanced. I'm going to click on this adult table here, which has already been analyzed for me, and you can see the whole structure of it shifted, though all the same information is still available, of course. We can now see here on the right-hand side quickly getting an overview of the information privacy and also get a nice look at sensitive, private, and candidate columns right in here. Same with the areas that I cover, top languages and time periods. It's much more readily available for us, plus the analysis summary. Then on the right hand side, we can find the additional properties. Of course, you can still assign contacts, add tags, remove tags, as you have the rights, of course, to it. You can see up top here, the status is approved now with a nice looking check mark symbol. And then we can go look at the table where we can see instead of semantic type, it's now called classification. And in accordance with that, it's no longer called remediation, but now reclassify if you want to override what has been assigned here automatically. And then you can, of course, also add to columns that don't have anything yet. And on the right hand side, you can add business terms nicely from within this UI. Going into the actual column analysis, this has all stayed more or less the same here. So really this main page gives you a much denser look at your information about your table and gets you quicker up and running which dataset is relevant to you. We looked at the new and refreshed overview page of any assets that you have in here. Now, this looked great, but now this has been expanded to the column profile page. By default, it now gives you a view for each column. You don't have to click into that column view any longer. And also, I feel like it's a lot more structured, easier to consume, and like everything is there that I want. Even advanced analytics pieces if there are correlations, and for data governance pieces, if you have business terms attached or classifications on it, you can see that here as well. But of course, the metric table is not gone. It's still here and you can easily navigate to it and also see that type of information like the correlation between columns in here as well. So awesome new updated view of this that makes it easier to navigate and get where you want to be faster and understand your data faster. With that, talking about getting places faster, let's open up the main menu. And this has greatly changed. First up, we have beautiful new icons up here that I find really helpful to quickly visually navigate through the analytical lifecycle. But then on the right hand side, maybe this must be my new favorite feature for this year, is the ability to quickly navigate through content that you have touched within SAS Viya. So be that tables that open up in Information Catalog, be it reports in Visual Analytics, be it Model Studio project, decisions, whatever you have and open up, it will keep track for you and you can just jump to those pieces. SAS code, right? So good. But you can also switch that to go to things like my favorites, so you can quickly navigate to those assets you want to make use of the most. And finally, if you have colleagues that share content with you, unlike with me, I only have one that has been shared with me, you can also quickly navigate to that content through here. This is so cool to me and really a booster to how I move throughout the SAS Viya platform. Speaking of, let's click on this Model Studio project because we are going to be looking at a new feature that has been added this month within SAS Model Studio. In here, I have just created a simple example project, but the interesting new node that we have gotten, which can be found under the miscellaneous nodes, is the model registration node. Now, the model registration node is always a terminal node within your branch that you're working with, meaning there is nothing that can come after model registration, which does make sense. It allows you to register models, including their pre-processing step that sit above them, to SAS Model Manager. Now, the cool thing here is this isn't only applicable to things like the supervised learning models, but also to unsupervised learning models that you create in here. For example, if you just want the clustering model that you have built in here, you can go ahead, say, add a child node, miscellaneous, and then model registration. Of course, you could also drag and drop into this. You will get a note that you have to run this node first. Let's dismiss this message for any further pieces and let's run it. As part of running this node, it will take a look and make sure that it has all the required metadata to create rich assets for the SAS Model Manager for us here. While this one is running, let's look at the results of the one that we already ran here. We can see all the score code that's being created. We get the inputs and outputs, the training code, and the associated properties for our model here. Of course, we can also export that as a PDF. And then in here, we can now right-click it to register our model or publish the model to mass, to soccer, or to CAS as appropriate for your use case here. This doesn't only work for clustering, but also for things like let's go ahead and add the text mining node into this. And of course, on this one, we can also add a child node and add a model registration one. So you have a lot of control with this one on what you register back into Model Manager if you find sub ideas that you really like during your exploration, or one of those unsupervised models is really the helpful piece that you want to pull out and move there. This is awesome. This is such a cool utility that makes building more customized pipelines easier than ever before. So I really appreciate this feature. With that, we come to the end of this month's release. See you next time and bye-bye.
Thank you, David. We will meet up with him again shortly. Next up, we have our Copilot Rundown. SAS Viya Copilot is a conversational, AI-driven assistant embedded directly into SAS Viya with functionalities across the platform. Whether you are managing an investigation or building a model, SAS Viya Copilot helps boost productivity and results across the data and AI lifecycle. We will hear about SAS Viya Copilot for SAS Visual Investigator, SAS Visual Analytics, SAS Data and AI Studio, and SAS Visual Statistics. I present to you the rundown.
I'm going to walk you through the AI capabilities in Visual Investigator in a quick investigation workflow. We'll start with AI-assisted search. Here, the idea is instead of writing complex queries, I can type what I want in plain English, and the system interprets it into a search. And depending on what I ask, it can translate it into a standard search, a relationship search, or a map search. I'm going to keep it simple. I'll run a standard search, and then I'll focus more on the Copilot pane and how the conversational experience speeds up investigation. So I'm going to click the AI-assisted search, and in the search box, I'm going to type claim with an incident date in the past 3 years. The system translates the request, runs the query, and returns results. That's the first focused AI Assist feature. Now, from the top right corner, let's open the Viya Copilot pane. Next, I'll narrow down the search results a bit. I'm going to filter the results by choosing auto collision and auto theft. This is just to get a smaller working set and show how that you can intervene manually as needed. You'll notice as we go along, Copilot is aware of the context and works directly with these results. So from these 20 items, let's investigate further and find high-risk claims. In the Copilot pane, I'll ask, show me auto claims with a fraud score over 80. The response I get back is a tighter subset. Now, I want to understand relationships. So I ask the Copilot to find the link between these 3 claims. Here's what I see. Copilot identifies a shared repair shop and highlights it as a pattern worth investigating. That's the kind of thing that can take a lot of manual cross-checking if you're not sure what to look for. Next, I'll add these to a workspace. I just want to capture the investigation. After they're added to a workspace, I want to expand the scope and find claims with fraud score lower than 80. So here I type another prompt. Copilot finds additional claims. I'll add them all to a workspace so we can find a full cluster in one space. From the network, this auto repair shop stands out as a central node in the network. So next, let's try to get a summary. I'll ask, give me a summary of how this auto repair shop is tied to these claims. The summary is generated right here within the Copilot pane. It helps me understand the pattern instantly without opening each record. I would also like to mention the objects returned in the chat are interactive. I can open one directly. So I can click into these claims from the conversation and open it to review details. Once it's opened, an AI-generated summary is available. This is the second Focus Assist feature, object summarization, and it is designed to speed up review by reducing the time spent scanning through long claim records. I would also like to point out, for object summaries, admins can use predefined templates to generate consistent, high-quality summaries. These templates include the prompt itself and lets the admin control exactly which data is sent to the model for summary generation. All right, let's move back to the investigation. Finally, I want to add a couple of photos I've received. So upon uploading a couple of images, you'll see an AI description is automatically generated based on what's visible in the photos. This is the third focused AI Assist feature, image description, making images searchable without manual effort. For images, admins can also define prompts. So to just bring it all together, AI-assisted search helps me get started faster. Copilot adds the context and connections that supports the investigation and surfaces patterns. And the targeted AI features help right where they matter most.
Hi, I'm Sasha, and I'm the product manager for SAS Visual Analytics. Today, I'm excited to walk you through a demo of SAS Viya Copilot in Visual Analytics, which was released GA in the 2026.04 April release. For this demo, we'll use data containing loans information, allowing us to better understand the distribution and status of outstanding loans. We can first use Copilot to analyze the geographic distribution of account holders. Copilot adds a region geomap onto the report canvas, displaying total accounts by state, as well as the total loan amounts for each state. This is a great start. Opening the data pane, we can see that Copilot converted the state data item from a category to a geographic classification and mapped the values to US state abbreviations appropriately. Next, I might want a higher-level regional view of total accounts. Region doesn't exist in my data, but I can create a new custom category based on state. Some Copilot experiences exist embedded within the VA interface for more targeted assistance. Here, Copilot generates suggestions for groupings based on the state data item. It's created groups for US states, US territories, and Washington, D.C. We can add more information to guide Copilot's response and generated values. I might want more granular US-based regions. The resulting groups look great and save me significant manual effort. I can also see how Copilot has explained its results for further transparency. Now, let's use this new field to take a closer look at total accounts by region. Copilot helps streamline the data to insights process using simple natural language instead of manual steps. The pie chart that Copilot generates is fully interactive with the map, making these visuals more dynamic and meaningful. Now that we have a better view of where our accounts are located, we can next focus on understanding the status of these loans. We can ask Copilot to explain the characteristics of the loan status data item. Copilot generates an automated explanation visual which describes the key drivers that influence loan status. We can see that the status of current is most common with 80% of the total values, while default status is less common at 20%. We can also see that the three most related factors are debt-to-income ratio, delinquent accounts, and property value. I'm particularly interested in investigating loans that are in default. Let's ask Copilot to help us visualize the relationships between the three most related factors of loan status. You can see that I haven't specified a specific chart type in my prompt. When this happens, Copilot selects the most common or analytically appropriate option based on my variable selection and intent. Here, Copilot has chosen to create a scatter plot to best analyze key characteristics across all records. Now I can start to identify patterns and relationships associated with defaulted loans. Or I can have Copilot do the work for me. Another embedded Copilot capability I can leverage is to generate a narrative summary of visuals in my report. The summary can provide insights such as trends, correlations, cyclical patterns, potential outliers, and so on, making it easier to understand the data and get insights faster. Now I'd like to know the potential financial impact if these defaulted loans are not paid. For that, I need to create a new calculated measure. Copilot can help with that too. I can just describe in plain language the business logic, and Copilot will generate the appropriate syntax. I can find this new calculation in the data pane and check the expression for accuracy. At this point, I'm ready to move into more predictive analysis. I'll ask Copilot to create a forecast that projects the loans in default. The new visual lets us see projected trends in defaulted loans and analyze how underlying factors like debt-to-income ratio impact those projections. One of the most powerful capabilities is asking Copilot to help understand the visuals. Looking at our forecast, I might wonder about trends and ask Copilot to provide some meaningful insights. Here, Copilot moves beyond generating visuals. It's looking at the underlying data to determine any interesting facts about the chart. This is where the AI truly acts as an intelligent assistant. Finally, we might want to embed that insight directly into the report for a high-level summary. Once added, notice the rich text formatting and helpful content, perfect for storytelling. This demonstrates Copilot's ability to not only generate content, but to integrate it contextually within your report. This exercise has helped us better understand the distribution and status of outstanding loans, with Viya Copilot making us more productive along the way. I invite you to try out Viya Copilot for yourself. And as always, more new features are in the works, so stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Gunja Walton, the Product Manager for SAS Visual Statistics. Today I'm going to share several new Viya Copilot capabilities in visual statistics that I'm really excited about. Our first new capability is AI-generated model summaries. These summaries help users better understand their model results directly inside Visual Analytics without having to manually interpret every statistic or table. Copilot can generate natural language summaries for multiple model types, including linear regression, generalized linear models, and logistic regression. For example, in this generalized linear model, Copilot provides a concise overall explanation of model results, highlighting the main findings in plain language. A similar at-a-glance summary is also available for logistic regression models, helping users quickly understand classification results and key model insights. Now, let's look at a linear regression. For linear regression models, Copilot provides a more detailed guided summary experience. The generated summary is organized into multiple sections, making it easier to review the model from different angles, including the overall interpretation, fit, residual behavior, assessment, and more detailed results. Our next new capability is AI-generated model diagnostics and remediation for linear regression. Here, I'm looking at the residual plot for the linear regression model. For a well-fitting linear regression, we generally want the residuals to look like a random cloud. But that can be difficult to assess, especially for users who are less familiar with regression diagnostics. I can ask Copilot to generate an analysis of the residual plot. Copilot identifies potential issues in the residual pattern and suggests ways to improve the model. In this case, it detects a pattern in the residuals which suggests the current model may benefit from a transformation. One suggested remediation is to apply a square root transformation to the response variable. When I apply that recommendation, Visual Analytics shows a comparison between the previous model and the updated model, so I can evaluate the impact before accepting the change. The square root transformation improves the residual pattern, but there is still room for improvement. So I continue using Copilot's guidance. Copilot identifies that a log transformation may further improve the model, and I apply that recommendation as well. After applying the log transformation, the residual plot looks more random, suggesting an improved model fit. Once I'm satisfied with the change, I can accept the updated model and continue my analysis. I invite you to try these new features yourself. More new features are in the works, so stay tuned.
Hello everyone, my name is Alexey. I'm Senior Product Manager for SAS Data and AI Studio, and in this section we're going to take a look at Code Assistant Copilot that we introduced in SAS Data and AI Studio in 2026-06 stable release. So first of all, as you can probably expect from Code Assistant Copilot experience, our Copilot will allow you to create or generate new code. It will also help you to work with the existing code, so for example, comment, refine, or improve the existing code. So we will support SAS and Python code in this release, and then Copilot experience will also be supported for the chatbot pane on the right hand side, and it will also be available inline just within your program. And finally, just as I mentioned, so Copilot will be available within Data and AI Studio, within Viya platform, so it will be tightly integrated into the environment where you already work for preparing and analyzing data. Now let's dive in and take a look at the demo. So first, let's take a look at inline experience with Copilot. In here, I'm working with SAS program and ProcSQL block, which is not very well formatted. I'm asking Copilot to format this block using /format command. Copilot does the job, highlights the previous state in red, the new one in green, and I can apply the changes if I like that. The other example here is a couple of data step blocks. And we have X variable which is used across these blocks, and we would like to rename this variable to Y. So I'm doing this using refine command and providing additional information about the action that I would like to perform. Again, Copilot did a pretty good job for me, and I can apply the changes in this case. Next, let's take a look at Python experience. And again, we're going to take a look at one of the other inline commands, which is in this case is explain. This Python program is new to me, and I would like to ask Copilot to explain this code for me so that I don't need to read this fully myself. I've already asked Copilot to perform this action, and Copilot provides the response in chatbot pane. Copilot generates a summary description of this whole block and then also provides additional information about each line or each specific block in this program. Now we can see that Copilot generates also additional notes and suggestions, something that can help us to improve this program. We've just seen a few examples how Copilot can help us to work with the existing code. Now let's take a look also at an example how Copilot can help us to generate new code. I'm going to use the following as an example. Let's say I have a table with information about different cars and their prices in dollars. This is the last column in this table. And I would like to create a Python program that would convert these prices in dollars to prices in euros. Of course, I'm going to ask Copilot to do it for me. I provide a pretty basic prompt for the chatbot pane, which asks Copilot to convert the prices in dollars to prices in euros using one of the public free API services, Frankfurter API. And I also provide just a little bit of additional details for Copilot. Copilot quickly generates a response for me. Not only it creates the actual program, but also adds additional information like summary of the program and explanation so that we can quickly understand the logic of the program. We can also take a look at code preview, which is also available in the chatbot pane. And now all what we need to do is just to insert this program into our code editor. So now let's take a close look at the program. I think Copilot did a pretty good job for me here. So it is using the proper API endpoint with the accurate parameters. It created try and except block as well, so to catch any possible issues. I think this program is looking pretty good. So all I need to do now is just to change my input and output tables to the real data sets that I'm using. And now we can just run this program within SAS Data and AI Studio. So this code executes pretty quickly, and let's take a look at the results. So the final table looks pretty good. Now we have an additional column with car prices information in euros, and we have also a reusable Python program that Copilot helped us to create. All of these capabilities that I've just demoed to you and even more features in Code Assistant Copilot are coming in 2026-06 stable release. If you would like to get more information, please always check our latest documentation. And of course, let us know if you have any questions. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.
As you can see, there's a lot happening around copilots, and there's still more to come. So keep an eye out for that. Last year, we covered the SAS Data Accelerator. Today, we'll cover the SAS Agentic AI Accelerator, along with the SAS Viya MCP server. Let's accelerate things with David Vike in today's release talk. Well, today we have a special release talk. We're getting double the dose of David Vike. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you, and I apologize in advance.
Well, let's get right into it. How can we interact with SAS in an agentic way?
Yeah, I think the main way that people want to do this nowadays is through MCP servers, which stands for Model Context Protocol, and it's an open standard. Essentially, it's a structured way for large language models to call on systems like SAS.
Great. So we had in a previous show the SAS Data Accelerator, but today we're talking about the SAS Agentic AI Accelerator. What's the difference?
So the Data Accelerator enables us to move analytics to your database. The SAS Agentic AI Accelerator enables users to build agentic workflows faster and move them into production in a more structured manner.
So if users wanted to use their own agentic workflows, they wanted to implement that, how could they do that?
Yeah, they would start first up working with their internal department on which large language models are okay to use. Then the SAS Agentic AI Accelerator connects to any of them And then we can start building out their use cases by doing prompt engineering, so you make sure you use the right large language model for the job, balancing cost, speed, and performance. And then we go into SAS intelligent decisioning, where we can put the large language model calls together with model calls, business rules, data lookup, all the pieces that you need in order to put something like this into production.
And I believe we have a demo of you showing this in action as well.
Exactly.
Let's roll it.
So let's get started by building out our prompts. For this, we can organize our prompts into projects. Think of them as like business use cases that make use of different prompts to create one unified experience at the end. In this interface, I have already pre-selected a project and a new prompt that we are going to build out here. And then we can go in and start utilizing the large language models that our organization has approved for use for us. We can here see we can have the most modern and up-to-date proprietary models from providers like OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, but also can integrate local models, even models that are tiny and can run on CPUs. This is really up to your organization to make available, because SAS is fully agnostic here. You can choose and bring whatever large language model in whatever runtime configuration that you have, and it can be integrated in here. Now, moving ahead, we can go in here now and say, okay, for our prompt, we might want to use a very tiny small language model here. And you can see we get a couple of configuration options that we can tune on this model. And there's also some helpful information to help us get started if we're new to this. Then let's add something a bit bigger to the mix here and utilize something like Llama 3.2 with 1 billion parameters and also 5.3 mini. You can see we have various different configurations options available that depend on the large language model and also what the administrator makes available to us. Then we can start by building out our prompt, where we can do system prompting, so having like a static behavior that we want the large language model to behave like, and then the user prompt, which enables us to inject dynamic content through variables. So in here, let's say we have something like we want to classify incoming feedback from customers, and we want two outputs from it, a sentiment score and an NPS score. And then over here, we will say feedback. That will be the name of our variable. And now we can have something like, this is the best show on YouTube. I will like and subscribe. Let's run our experiment. And now this prompt is put together and then sent over to our three selected large language models with their respective parameter options for us. Some of these models are deployed just on CPU, so the runtime can take a second. And once all of them are returned to us, we get a prompt experiment run. Now this reiterates what we sent to it, and then we get one bar for each model that we can dig into. We can take a look at the outputs, and here we can see the 3.2 model being very verbose in its output. So was 3.5, and then the small language model just repeated something back to us that wasn't really helpful, but that is to be expected by a small language model. We can also see it was the fastest and used the fewest tokens, which is important for cost management, for example. Now, looking at this, we want to run a new iteration of our prompt. This time we'll ignore the small LLM one because it really wasn't helpful. And let's go in here and say only respond with the sentiment score and the NPS. Nothing else. And let's add another experiment run. This allows us to quickly iterate on our prompts and improve on them over time. We can now see we only have two in here. And now we can see sentiment score 10 out of 10, NPS 1000. Okay, I find that a bit weird. Sentiment score +5 very positive, NPS +5 very loyal. This sounds pretty good. The runtime difference is not that significant, same as for the tokens. So it's classified this one as the best response. And we are going ahead and manifesting this prompt. This turns this whole experiment and all the runs that we have been doing into an asset that we can make use of inside of SAS Model Manager. So SAS Model Manager is used for the versioning of all our prompts along with the experiments, so we can later on retrieve them and make use of them again. And now that we have this integration, we can pull this model directly into SAS Intelligent Decisioning. So let's jump over into Intelligent Decisioning, where we can just go ahead, create a new decision. Let's just keep with the generic name here. And now we can go ahead and use the menu here to pull in our prompt from the LM repository. We called our project Hi YouTube. And then in here we have our first prompt that we can just add into our decision here. And now we can also go ahead and add the call LLM node, which actually executes that call to the large language model and gives us a structured output that we now can integrate into our decisions, publish them as part of the SAS container runtime or into any of the other publishing destinations. And then we can expand the capabilities of our decisions to make use of agentic workflows.
Great demo. Always better for me to see it in action with my own eyes. If I were to use this, which use cases would see the most value from Agentic AI Accelerator and MCP server?
The most important piece is always start with something internal that you can do. Because if you're facing your customers, then you usually have to jump through a lot more hurdles. So getting to value faster is important. That could be something like triaging internal support tickets, for example, to quickly respond to people so they can get back up and running. That builds trust and confidence into the system.
David, if I wanted to learn more about this, what resources would you point me towards?
I think the best place to get started is a free SAS education course that we have available on the SAS Agentic AI Accelerator, and of course, our SAS software GitHub.
Free SAS education course. I like the sound of that. David, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's a lot more painless than I thought. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, David, for working overtime on this month's show. I'm curious about your thoughts on AI Accelerator. How have you been using Agentic AI in your own workflows? Let me know in the comments. Before we leave you today, why not give us a like, subscribe to the SAS Users YouTube channel, and click that bell so you'll get notified for new videos and when we go live for our next show in August. Until then, comment on what topics you'd like to see in future shows. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.